What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Anas. I'm a fourth year medical student studying in London, and in today's video I want to talk about some key principles that I've been able to derive actually from a business book that I was reading last summer. And I was literally sitting there thinking, like, what the hell, how is this book about running a startup literally laying out some of the really important mistakes that students make when they're studying at uni or for A-levels or for GCSEs. So I thought I would kind of write some of those down and make it into a video, so hopefully it'll be quite useful for you guys. But before that, a huge shout out and thank you to our sponsor of this video, Blinkist, which is an app I've been using for a while. And essentially they're an app with a massive library of books that have been summarized into kind of 15-minute key points that you can listen to or you can read, and I've actually found it really useful. So I'll be talking about it at the end of the video in terms of how it's fit into my day-to-day life and how I've been using it when I've been commuting to placement or during my break times. Yeah, so now let's get into the video. So in terms of principles, there are three main ones that I've been able to take away from the Lean Startup. And the first one is validated learning, second one is Vanity Metrics, and the third one is pivoting. So they might not be very clear now at the start, but I'm going to go into explaining them in a bit more detail. So in terms of validated learning, so one of the major kind of difficulties for students is that there are so many different techniques out there in terms of how to study. You've got flashcards, you've got online flashcards, you've got spaced repetition, you've got active recall, you've got group study sessions, you've got lectures, whatever. And ideally what you want to do is find which technique is the best one for you in the most efficient way. But what we all tend to do is just pick one technique at random and then just use it for like a whole year or 2 years, and then only to find out at the end that maybe this wasn't the best one for you. But now reflecting back, you've just spent 2 years with this really inefficient technique when actually you could have identified early on that I need to be doing something else instead, and then got much better results. The way you can use validated learning is actually, instead of using one technique for 1 year or 2 years, choose a small sample of your learning and test your technique on it. So for example, just choose one module or choose a couple of lectures that you can test that technique on. So if you want to test out where the physical flashcards are the best for you, then do it for one module or do it for a few lectures, and then you can test yourself after with some kind of measurement or some kind of metric. And this takes us on quite nicely into what kind of metric you should be using in order to measure progress. And one of the biggest mistakes that we make as students is the use of vanity metrics. And what vanity metrics means is choosing the wrong kind of metric in order to measure your progress. Often metrics that make you feel like you're doing loads of work and make you feel like you're progressing a lot. A really good example of this is measuring the number of hours you're studying. So often we tell ourselves, oh, I've just spent 12 hours studying, or I've just spent the night studying, or I've just spent all day at university in the library trying to do some work. Where in reality, out of those 12 hours that you've been there, maybe 10 hours you were spending on your phone, or you were spending on Instagram, or you were spending kind of watching Netflix or whatever. That wasn't exactly the right metric that you could measure your progress with. One of the really good metrics that you could use is active recall questions. And we keep talking about active recall as a really good way of memorizing. But actually one of the huge advantages of using questions and active recall is the measurement of progress, right? So if you've got maybe 100 questions and with one technique you're getting 10 of them right, then you decide to switch it up and you use it for a week, and now I've got 90 right out of 100. Now you know that you're actually doing something right. Instead of saying, oh, I've spent this many hours in the library, the metric you're using isn't measuring progress. And that takes us on quite nicely into the third principle. And the third principle is pivoting. And one of the really important characteristics that students who tend to do really well have is that they know exactly when it's time to switch things up. And I know on this channel I've been a really kind of high promoter of hard work and persistence and keep going and all of that, and that still stands. It's really important to work hard, but there's no point working hard at something that doesn't work. Oof. Yeah, a bit poetic. If you're finding that things are not sticking or you're not making progress, then you need to change something. Otherwise you're going to get to the end of your kind of exam season and yeah, you really haven't gotten much out of your study sessions. And so if you're finding that things are not progressing, then you know what, it's time to switch techniques. Let me give some examples from kind of my year this year. I've used so many different techniques. At one point I was collating different notes into one place, okay, but then I found that that took an excessive amount of time, and then I decided to switch things up again and using Anki and Quizlet, so online flashcards, and I found those to be quite useful. So now I've tested a few things and I know which ones work, I know which ones don't work, and the ones that work I can just kind of combine them just to get the best technique that works for myself. So you need to know when it's time to pivot and switch your techniques up or do something differently. So now I want to tell you a bit about Blinkist, which is the app that I use in order to rejig my memory of the Lean Startup, which I read last year. And one of the biggest issues, I think, as students and as people who are working, is that we feel like we don't have enough time to read all the books that we want. We keep getting lots of suggestions from friends and other people, read this book and that book, and what tends to happen to me is that I just keep them on a list and then I never actually get to reading them. And one of the reasons that I've been using it personally is because it's one of the only apps that takes all of these books and summarizes them into kind of condensed, digestible pieces of information, and it condenses them so that you can listen to them if you want in terms of a kind of a podcast format, or you can read them as well, and it only takes about 15 minutes to get through a book. So here's the app itself. I can go in here and search an author, so let's search some Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary Vayner, and here are all his books, and I've downloaded them. And also I can go in here to my library, and these are the books that I've listened to, so I prefer listening to the books rather than reading. That's a personal preference, to be honest. I just feel like I take in the information a lot better that way. And here I've listened to books by Simon Sinek. One that I really liked was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that was a book that was suggested to me by someone at work when I was working at a GP practice. So if I open one up, let's open the Lean Startup. Then I can go through a series of kind of summarized points, but also if I go in here, then I can just listen to it and then it just plays. Most of the time I've been using it when I've been going to placement, which has been a bit far away, so I just pop my AirPods in and I just listen to one of these books. Or at times when I'm at uni and I just need a break, I just leave and I go sit on one of the sofas, 15 minutes, and I just get through a whole book like that. And so the first 100 people that go into the link that is in the description will get a 1 week free unlimited access to the app, and you'll be able to cancel whenever you want, and also 25% off a full membership if you decide to go for that. So yeah, I hope you enjoy using the app. But let's put this here. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, comment, like, subscribe, save.